when we're talking about compassion fatigue, that malaise that comes over people who deal constantly with other people's pain, there are a lot of negative behaviors that come from it. The symptoms like chronic aches and pains, excessive anger, guilt, fear, minimizing, dissociation, these cause behaviors. And so that's what other people see. I'll remind you that people who are suffering don't always recognize that they're suffering. They just know that things are not right in their world. And part of what comes from this is that people tend to blame everything else, blame others, and they feel hopeless and helpless in their own lives. And so it's a self-perpetuating kind of malady. When you are a coworker or a loved one or a friend of someone who's suffering, how much of this behavior do you need to tolerate? Not much, I don't think. And so today I'd like to talk with you about how to confront, how to give feedback to someone that you believe is truly suffering, who's not recognizing that they're suffering and not choosing to get help. So how do you respond to that? Because what I see happen in work groups is that people turn on the person who's suffering because their behavior is unacceptable. And instead of confronting it, instead of acknowledging it and trying to work through it, people will tend to blame that person and believe that it's a character defect instead of something wrong. So the question becomes, what happened to you more than what's wrong with you? But we tend to think, well, what's wrong with you? Who do you think you are to treat me that way or to behave that way? So let's get a little specific. Say you have a coworker who's missing a lot of work. And it doesn't seem to be anything real significant. They call in for a day off frequently, once every 5 weeks, when you can't miss more than once in 4 weeks, and that sort of thing. It's excessive sick leave use. It falls within the parameters of the rules of where you work, but they're pushing the edge. And for me, it was in 911 that someone we observed was doing that. And instead of saying, hey, this is a pattern that we're seeing, we just talked bad about her and made bets about when she was going to call off sick again. Well, that's not very useful, is it? So what I would recommend now, with what I've learned in the intervening years, is that when you talk to somebody about the behavior that you're seeing and observing that's unacceptable, what you need to do is make sure that you are not charged up, that you're not angry when you talk to them. Talk to them in an accepting and matter-of-fact way. This is what I see happening. This is the behavior. And so, just the facts. Not, you're taking advantage, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you've done this, blah, blah, blah. It's, this is what's going on. And then listen. Listen to what they say. And when they come out with excuses or other blame, you listen. You just listen. And then you say, thank you for sharing with me, and reflect back what you heard them say so that they hear it, especially the other blaming somehow. When you hear what other people are saying, that's a way to recognize. And then you remind them of what's acceptable. This is what would be acceptable. And ask them how they're going to rectify it. And let them tell you what they need to do differently. I don't believe that anybody wants to do a bad job. I don't believe that anybody wants to be a disliked coworker. I don't think that that's the goal. I do think that people tend to accept that they are cranky and tend to accept that they make mistakes and not believe that there's any good reason to rectify that. But when we can come at them not with anger or disappointment or disdain, but with acceptance and with a kind heart, it opens up the door for them to say, you know, I need help. I need to figure this out. Because part of this process, so first you tell them what you've observed. Then you listen to their explanation. And then you explain what acceptable behavior is. Now, by listening, I mean listen well and reflect back. You explain what the acceptable behavior is. And there's a gap between this and this, or between this and this, between what happened and what is acceptable. And ask them how they're going to fill that gap. But you also make a plan to get back together in a few weeks to see how things are going. In that way, you can help somebody. And if they don't perceive a need for counseling yet, or they don't see that they have a problem yet, it's a way to open the door to that conversation, because when you get back together with them in a couple of weeks, if it's continued, then you can say, okay, I know that you're trying. And I think maybe you need help. What do you think? Because if you could do it on your own, wouldn't you have done it already? If you could figure out how to go through your day and not be angry all day, wouldn't you do it? That kind of seething anger, the physical malaise that comes from compassion fatigue, I don't think anybody wants that in their lives. If we could fix ourselves immediately, we would. Because we're that kind of awesome. I hope this is helpful to you, because one of the risks of acknowledging that someone else is suffering is it seems to give them permission to behave badly. And I don't think we're doing that. I don't think we need to give people permission to behave badly. I don't think that serves them well. And I know it doesn't serve us well, does it? That's what I have for you today. My company name is Shape Good Habits. You can find me at www.shapegoodhabits.com. My name is Edie DeVilbiss, and we do have a YouTube channel under Shape Good Habits. So I'd love for you to subscribe. Have an amazing rest of your day.